Shabbat Shalom. I think I found one of the most naive medieval Torah commentaries ever this week, and I thought I would share it with you. It's on the verse, Lo tisne et achicha bilvavecha, you shall not hate your brother, your fellow in your heart. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha, you shall criticize or rebuke your fellow. Why? Velo tisa alav chet, so that you don't end up bearing the sin of your fellow because you didn't rebuke them and they continue to go on doing awful things that maybe you could have stopped. So here's how the Or HaChaim, medieval commentator, understands this verse. Do not hate your fellow in your heart. The Torah urges us that if we harbor some resentment against our fellow, we will eventually allow that resentment, should we not let it out, come to hate. So we should not bottle it up when we feel the resentment. We should say it beficha and offer the criticism that that person needs so that the resentment does not continue to build. And then he says, so that you will not bear sin on account of this person. Says, do not assume in your heart that whatever it is the other Jew has done to cause you to hate him, he has done purposefully, and that he continues to feel that hostility towards you. The assumption that when somebody hurts us, they are doing it intentionally, he said, you have to let go of that sometimes. Give them the benefit of the doubt and transparently discuss the matter with them. And the discussion could lead to one of two possible results. So this is where we get to, in my mind, the medieval naivete. Somebody's done something, you don't like it, you disagree with them, whatever it is. The Or HaChaim says, look, you gotta talk about it. And here's what could happen if you talk about it. This person may explain to you that they had good reason for what they did, so that there is no reason to hate them. Or you could talk about them and they will change their attitude towards you. They'll like you more maybe than they did before, or agree with you, or they will not offer you hostile conduct. And as a result of the conversation, the Or HaChaim says that we enter into somebody who has hurt us, then, of course, we are friends and no longer enemies. Just talk it out. So I'm surprised the Or HaChaim didn't offer a third option when we call somebody out on something they may have done to us or something they may have said that is problematic. The third option, the one that I probably experience most often or see, is that, in fact, this person may gaslight me or lie to me or use some version of plausible deniability to try and confuse me such that I believe afterwards that they didn't intend to hurt me, but they probably actually did. In fact, when we, at least our society oftentimes teaches us, when we gaslight, when we lie, when we use plausible deniability as a way to win an argument, the effects are actually pretty good. You can get elected to the highest office in the land if you use such techniques, any land. So when the Or HaChaim said, look, just talk it out, I want to be like, welcome to my world, in which when people disagree with one another, it is not the norm to just talk it out and show curiosity and not condemnation. It has become the norm to silo ourselves off away from the disagreement as much as possible, to avoid anything that makes us uncomfortable, and to gaslight those who might call us out, telling them they are the perpetrators. All of this, I think, probably caught my attention this week because I was rereading Yuval Harari's 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. He's got a chapter on post-truth, which he sees as a problem for the 21st century. But here's how he frames it. He says, in fact, humans have always lived in the age of post-truth. Humans have always lived this way. Homo sapiens is a post-truth species whose power depends on creating and believing fictions, Ever since the Stone Age, self-reinforcing myths have served to unite human collectives. Indeed, Homo sapiens conquered this planet thanks above all to the unique human ability to create and spread fictions. We are the only mammals that can cooperate with numerous strangers because only we can invent fictional stories, spread them around, and convince millions of others to believe in them. Feature, not a bug. He says, you cannot organize masses of people effectively without relying on some mythology. If you stick to unalloyed reality, few people will follow you. In fact, false stories have an intrinsic advantage over truth when it comes to uniting people. And truth and power, they travel together. If you want to know the truth about the world, at some point you will have to renounce power. You will have to admit things, for example, about the sources of your own power that will anger allies, dishearten followers, or undermine social harmony. Scholars throughout history, academics, have faced this dilemma. Do they serve power or truth? Should they aim to unite people by making sure everyone believes in the same story, or should they let people know the truth even at the price of disunity? As a species, humans prefer power to truth. We have shown this over and over again. We spend far more time and effort on trying to control the world than trying to understand it. And even when we try to understand it, we usually do so in the hope that understanding the world will make it easier to control. Therefore, if you dream of a society in which truth reigns supreme and myths are ignored, you have little to expect from Homo sapiens. Harari writes, better try your luck with the chimps. It's a really uplifting book. But in a post-truth world, we sometimes have to wonder why the myths and the fictions are spread. To what end? And the end is almost always power. Just last week, MGT was upset about an anti-Semitism bill because it would have taken away a certain segment of the population's power to use the myth that Jews killed Jesus. That myth, right, that is a myth, a fiction that people have spread throughout centuries for power, and it has hurt a lot of people. Try to take somebody's myth away, and you take away their power, their capacity to unite people around them. Another myth, one that I grew up with, one that I was taught to say, a people without a land to a land without a people. That is a myth we told about Israel. Early Zionists told that myth. It was an important myth, a people without a land to a land without a people. Of course, it is a myth. Anybody who's been in my book club for the past 3 years and has read Jerusalem 1913 with us knows that it isn't true, but it is a myth that was an important one, and that has been used as well to build a certain amount of power. Many people would have me believe, or try to convince me, that the protests we are seeing unfolding across this country, the continent, the world, they'll tell me it's not all about anti-Semitism. Sure, maybe there are a few bad apples in the bunch, but overall it's benign. Others would have me believe that it is only about anti-Semitism, has nothing to do with nation states or policies or corrupt politicians. Sure, maybe there are a few racists in the governments, your Ben Gvirs, your Smotriches, but really what's happening is they hate us. It's entirely about anti-Semitism. The thing about myths is they create a binary that makes it impossible for people to actually sit down and have the conversation. If you try to convince me that your protest is not anti-Semitic when there is clear anti-Semitic burning through it, I don't know where to start. And if you try to convince me that it's only anti-Semitism and convince me that all I have to do is look away from the government and their policies and the people running it, where do we start? Where do we start? I want the Or HaChaim to not feel naive. Sit down, talk it through. But the more and more we say the binaries, the more and more we try to convince ourselves that the world is only this or that, or your side is only this or that, or my side is only this or that, the more we post about them, the more we meme some of the most complicated ideas in the world, meme meaning put them into 4 words in order to make a gotcha moment online, the more we run away from truth for the sake of power, the power of our own myth and our own story. And I'm not talking about us. I am talking about the way in which communities interact with one another, both internally and externally. Look, it's not equivocation. Harari also said, one of the greatest fictions of all is to deny the complexity of the world and think in absolute terms, pristine purity versus satanic evil. But he said, no politician tells the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and yet some are still far better than others. Given the choice, he said, I would choose Churchill over Stalin, even though the British Prime Minister was not above embellishing the truth when it suited him. Similarly, no newspaper is free of biases and mistakes, but some newspapers make an honest effort to find out the truth, whereas others are a brainwashing machine. And here's how he finishes that chapter. It is the responsibility of all of us to invest time and effort in uncovering our biases and in verifying all of our sources of information. This is going to be one of the most challenging tasks of the 21st century. We can no longer deny that we all build ourselves on the power of myth, storytelling. It works. When it is used to bring communities together, love, not hate, it is unbelievably powerful. The power of myth is eternal. The danger is the power. Look, some of you will want me to spend my time right now knocking down one group or another. I can feel it. Say this one's better than that one. And I won't. Not because I don't have my own opinions on what I am watching unfold across the country and across the world, and not because I would ever make the claim that I'll equivocate between a Hamas and a Netanyahu. I will not equivocate. Like Harari, I'll choose one over the other every time. But I also want to leave space for each one of us to interrogate our own myths without having to have the person with the microphone do it for us. The unfinished Torah that I want to leave you with today is that there are myths in your life that are dressing themselves up as truth. Each one of us has them. And until we truly begin to delayer them, we will all be vying for a power that is elusive and will lead to more and more people hurt. It's possible to do this. This ought to be one of the spaces in which we can have those conversations. We're going to have one today at 1 o'clock when General Shimshoni is here to begin. But I want the Or HaChaim to not be naive, after all. I want us to be able to sit down, and I want 2 outcomes to be possible. Maybe they didn't hate me, or maybe they weren't trying to hurt me when they said that thing about me, and maybe because of it, we actually have a future together when people told us we ought to be separate one from the other, because I just don't want to live in a world like that or be in a community like that. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.